If you're thinking about those economic, like, say I wanted to move to Indiana, and how much should it matter what the economy is doing with this house that I'm moving into? Say I'm planning to sit there, make it my career. Is it like, well, this house is going to depreciate for a little bit before it starts to go up? Does that matter? Because if you're trying to invest, it matters very much. But if it's a place to live,
the way I would look at it, Ashton, is I'd look at what my rent would cost me versus what owning a home when I'm making that financial decision.
And is that month to month? Is it over the course of 10 years?
If you think you're going to be there, I would look more like at the 10-year span.
Gotcha.
If it's just the short term, I'd look at it short term.
Have you ever felt awkward when trying to start a conversation? Do you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed? Or perhaps you wish you could keep track of your money better? Do adulting skills give you grief? What if you had one place to go to learn about all these skills and more?
Welcome to Adulting Decrypted. We prepare young adults to be independent powerhouses for life. An independent powerhouse is someone who possesses the ability to be socially, emotionally, practically, and financially independent.
Let's take a quick second for us to introduce ourselves.
I'm Ashton. When I first moved out, I wanted nothing more than independence. There were a lot of things that I didn't know, and I needed help from my parents in basically all facets of my life. I went on a 2-year service mission, and when I came home, I was determined to do better than I did before. I'm now living on my own, paying for my own place, and learning a ton of lessons that I am happy to learn, even though they may be difficult. I'm excited to share what I'm learning. I'm also excited to learn with you.
I'm Gideon, and while seeing the world and people around me, I've always wanted to stand out and be more prepared than my peers, lacking the skill to know where to look and to find guidance, other than my older and wiser family. Now with this podcast, I can learn how to progress and share this knowledge with others.
I'm Roscoe, the dad. Michelle and I thought we had taught the children everything they needed to know to become adults. Then one day at dinner, we were having a conversation about an Ivy League school had just started Adulting 101, and they were teaching such basic skills, and I was laughing. That's when Ashton jumped in, Gene and Gideon, and all told us about the gaps in our training. That is why we decided to launch Adulting Decrypted.
Normally, there are 4 hosts for the show. Gene, the 4th host, is currently on a 2-year service mission.
I'm Gene, and I'm actually recording this on my phone because I'm out in Louisiana and Mississippi. I won't be able to join the discussion today. I will be back, I promise.
While we won't be able to hear his live comments, we're looking forward to sharing his thoughts and his stories regularly on the show.
And now, on with the episode.
Here's the thought for today. Is the home an asset or a liability? Meaning, does it make you money or cost you money? We've had a liability asset conversation before, haven't we? You guys comfortable enough with that to answer the question?
Yeah, I have an answer.
Yeah.
I think, I'm fairly certain a home is an asset.
Interesting.
Because it makes money.
Okay. Gideon?
I think it's a liability.
You know, you're both right.
That's
what
Gosh. No! How is that possible?
Well, most people misunderstand that it is just an asset. However, There's a lot of liability tied to owning a home that people don't think about. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through some financial consideration of buying a home, the length you plan on staying in a home, market conditions, as well as your lifestyle and flexibility of owning a home. I want to start by letting the listener know I'm kind of biased. I have a home, working on a second home right now, so that just is a place to come from, as I'm a homeowner by nature, but don't know for sure that it's for me long term. Just so that everybody's aware where I'm at, right? Do I always want to own a home? Do I always want a standalone dwelling? I don't know. Now that I'm getting older and watching in-laws and parents deal with that, I'm rethinking that idea.
Yep.
So I still might own something, but so when I'm talking about home, I'm even talking about a condo, a townhome, a standalone home, something like that, versus renting and how that liability changes. Cool?
Yep.
All right, so some financial considerations. But let's just say a typical home, just to try and keep it real simple, is $325,000, right? So not a huge home, kind of a starter home. If you took a 15-year loan out on that mortgage at about 6.5%, where mortgage rates are right now, 6.5 to 6.8, how much do you think you're paying for that home total with your interest on over 15 years?
Over 15 years, 6% interest every month, right? Is how that would be?
Yeah. Huh?
Wait, what was the starting price here?
350.
Yeah.
Oh, 325.
325.
I was gonna guess 800 to $1 million.
Nope.
My guess.
Yeah, you're a little high. On a 15-year, that's $500,000, $500,000. So you're paying, what is that, close to 200,000 plus, 280 on just interest.
Yep.
Now we'll talk about some tax breaks and some of that as we go into it. Just keep that in mind. Now, if you do a traditional mortgage, which is where your lender's going to probably steer you, they're going to say, hey, go to a 30-year loan. Your payments are a lot lower. And they are on this type of home. If you did a 15-year note at that 6.8% interest, your loan payment's going to be like $2,800 a month. If you did that same home and you're like on a 30-year note, your loan payment's like $2,170. Any thoughts on how much you pay for that? Now, you're a little bit higher interest rate normally because you're borrowing money for longer. So I ran that at about a 7.25%.
Right,
It's about 0.5% difference.
Say all the numbers in a row.
Yeah. $325,000.
Yep.
A 30-year note, 30-year loan.
Yep.
At 7.5 on that 325.
So the last one was 500. It's a longer loan. It's a higher percentage. I'm gonna guess that one's.
Well, Ashley, you got it because you didn't go over, but Gideon was closer at 8. $787,000, give or take.
Means I still win. Take
On the
that.
Price is Right, you would.
Yeah, I guess.
So where's my free home then?
So yeah, well, so there is, you do pay a lot in interest. Now there are some tax write-offs on interest, and we can cover that in a tax episode. But really, you're getting a tax break, but you're really not making any money. So there's a lot of interest you're going to pay. There are some upsides, and Ashton, I think you hit on this early. You can build equity. Do you guys know how much my home's increased in value since we've owned it? Just to give the listener perspective, we've owned it for 20 years.
Do we get to know what you bought it at?
Yeah, $202,000.
I'm gonna guess went up by. Well, I've guessed first a lot. Do you want to guess first?
Sure. I'll say 200%.
Okay, so what you're saying is you're saying it's worth double.
So now it's 400.
So I'll say 5 instead. I'll make it
5?
I was gonna
Okay.
say 5 too.
Okay.
I'm gonna do 501.
Ashton, you're closer.
Yeah.
501 is like 530. But really the only upside is like $330,000. So that seems like a lot, right?
Yeah.
In 20 years, and it is. Right?
Sure.
I don't want to discredit that, but if I would go to buy a home now, I've got to spend all that money to buy a home because the price of a home are up for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, and I've paid that much in interest, right? $500,000 in interest in theory, you start going, where does this home really make sense?
Yeah.
Well, that's why some of these tax breaks help, but you got to look at, there are taxes on a home. There's property taxes you have to pay every year. There's insurance you have to buy for it. And then you got to make sure your budget can afford it. One of the other thing I'd look at on a financial, because the reason why this came up is I've been interacting with our Reddit people that I've been chatting with on Reddit, and they're going, when can I buy a home? I'm 20 years old and I'm really excited about buying a home. And my take is wait. Just give yourself a second. What's your budget for a home? What's the rent in your area, right? If I would have paid rent for that same amount of time, it's all gone. And I probably would have had to pay as much as I paid for my mortgage and rent because of the size of our family, right? There's 6 of us. We needed a big home. Gideon's the last one that actually lives at home right now. And so I'm down to where I don't need that size of a home, and it puts all this stuff in question. Any other financial considerations?
Well, I mean, there's the operating cost.
Yep, good. Yep.
So-
Which there isn't an apartment, right? But the
Yeah.
operating costs are a little bit different because now you got to think about lawn care. You've got to think about watering, outside watering. You've got sprinkler repairs,
General repairs.
hot water.
Like if you're renting, you can always put in like, hey, this is no longer working, fix it. Whereas if you own a home, you can text yourself if it makes you feel really good, but you have to fix it. Anyways, so
Mom texts me, hey, can you please fix this door? It's still squeaking. It's still broken. Now, but there are stuff that you can do, and we'll talk about that, and that's like in the lifestyle section about how you can modify and update it. But now when you're thinking about getting a home, another thing to consider on is how long do you plan on staying there? That was our second home that we bought. We bought our first one in Taylorsville. Our second one is in Colorado. And in between those two, we rented a place in California because I told my wife, California is crazy. The market goes up and the market goes down. And you just have to time it just right. And I don't know that I have the timing of it just right for a 2-year deal because that's how long I'm supposed to live there. So when we moved to Colorado, I'm like, Colorado's safe. My brother-in-law kept telling me how the market is so strong in Colorado and that it's going to go up in Colorado and you'll never lose money in Colorado. Well, the problem is we got over there. We decided that we didn't love the job, didn't mind Colorado, but the job wasn't for me. And I moved in 6 months. Any guess on how much I lost on that home in 6 months? I'm already telling you it's a loss.
yeah, it's a lot, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I lost $20,000.
Yeah.
And it was mostly in realtor fees.
Right, because they were like, you said you'd do this, and now you're leaving.
Yeah, so I still had to pay the realtor to sell my home. I had to pay for the property inspection. I had to pay for everything else. And so I lost $20,000. So how long are you going to live in an area? The longer you own a home, mathematically, the better chances you have of equity in that home. And equity's what you paid for it versus what it is now.
Right.
Doesn't include interest. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about in this length of stay is it stability for your family?
Right.
For Mom and I, that became a big deal. I'd moved her 10 times in the first 4 years of marriage, 5 years of marriage. She was done. It was actually our 11th move to move into that home. So there was an emotional attachment to that home.
Right.
That I couldn't talk her out of. She's like, look, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna raise my kids here. Now that you guys are raised, that emotional attachment is starting to separate for her.
Yeah.
So you gotta be honest about it with yourself and say, how long am I gonna stay here? Is this best for the kids? I don't know. You have to decide as a listener. Cool. How long are you gonna stay there?
Yep.
So financial considerations, length of stay. Something else is to think about is market conditions, and we kind of touched on those. What kind of market conditions affects housing?
Hello. If you're listening to this right now, that means you're currently listening to an episode of Adulting Decrypted. And let me just say thank you. My name's Ashton, one of the hosts of Adulting Decrypted, and I wanted to steal a quick second of your time to do a shameless little plug. If you've listened to our podcast for any sort of time, you know that we talk about a bunch of different stuff all about adulting. Because our goal is to help individuals in this task we call adulting. Now, we have just revamped the way that we do this. If you go to adultingdecrypted.com, you can see all of our episodes sorted out by category. We've sorted it into financial, practical, emotional, social, and things just for fun. So, if any of those categories are of particular interest to you right now, you can go onto the website, look through there, and see all of our episodes that correlate with that specific thing. This website's completely free to use. It's just another tool for our listeners to find things that are more important to them now. So, for example, if I was looking at it, I'd scroll through and say, hey, you know what? I want to see what the Adulting Decrypted crew has talked about socially. Well, one of our first episodes, season 1, episode 3, how do I talk to people? That's where we talked about all about how to talk to people. So if that's something you want right now, you can go find that right now. Also in this one, season 3, episode 15, the power of a humble mediator, where we talked to one of my old bosses about his business as a mayor, also as a small theater owner. Some really cool stuff. So, if you're looking for a better way to organize through all your self-help podcasts, try adultingdecrypted.com. and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Just about everything, I'd imagine. Cost of living in an area.
Yep.
Outside of, living in a house, but like all the stuff, like food, gas, all those other sorts of things.
Sure. And then
Location.
yeah, location, as they say, is the most important, three important things in real estate. So that's something to think about. I have a friend of mine bought some homes in Indiana, and Indiana was going through a real economic downturn. They're not bringing in the businesses. There's a lot of deflation that's happening there. Had to lose all of his money that he put into them.
Yeah.
Because they never grew. Friend in Phoenix bought a home, never made the move to Phoenix, but said, hey, it's a good investment. At least I have a home.
Mm-hmm.
Paid every month on a losing project. At some point in time, you just have to say, look, take the home. You know what I mean? Sell it for a loss. Be done with it,
And so with those so those two examples are individuals that are trying to get into the real estate business to accrue
Correct.
wealth, which is a bit different than the situation that someone like me would be in getting a home for the first time. So I have a question here that I'm trying to formulate correctly. If you're thinking about those economic, like, say I wanted to move to Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and how much should it matter what the economy is doing with this house that I'm moving into? Say I'm planning to sit there, make it my career. Is it like, well, this house is going to depreciate for a little bit before it starts to go up? Does that matter? Because if you're trying to invest, it matters very much. But if it's a place to live,
The way I would look at it, Ashton, is I'd look at what my rent would cost me versus what owning a home when I'm making that financial decision.
and is that month to month? Is it over the course of 10 years?
If you think you're going to be there, I would look more like at the 10-year span.
Gotcha.
If it's just the short term, I'd look at it short term. That's where you want to look at the supply and demand in an area. Like in Utah, you're like, oh, I found this home and it's really a cheap price and I can put my whole family in and it's the right thing. You have to buy that home because rent's out of control here.
Yeah.
Right? So you look at it and go, yeah, this is a good move. But that's why it's not always just a financial. It's sometimes it's what market am I in? What's happening around me? Like in 2008, everybody lost money on their homes. I only bought mine in 2004, but I never went negative because I looked for a foreclosure home that somebody was already at low end. So when I bought it, I already had some equity. It got sucked up in 2008, but I never went upside down on my home.
Right.
So yeah, that's a very fair question. So I'd look at that analysis and just kind of make that baseline best decision I could. And you don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
But you do know Utah's growing.
Yeah.
And in Indiana, it's shrinking and you're making a career out there. You're going to look for the nicest property that you can buy. Where in Utah, I'm looking for the cheapest home I can buy in the nicest neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Over there, you're like, wow, my money's going to buy me a lot. I'm going to go look for something really nice because I might as well because I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Does that help?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is to pay attention when you're going to buy a home, read the newspaper, look at what interest rates are doing. What's the economy doing? What are they projected to be doing? So that when you go to buy that, like, I don't know that I'd buy a home right now. Keep in mind, realtors are going to tell you it's a great time to buy a home.
Well, it's always a great time to buy a home when you got commissions on the line.
Right. But when you want to really step back and look at it, how does it work? Okay.
Right.
It might sound like I'm being negative about home buying. I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to help the listener understand that we have been sold a bill of goods since World War II that every American should own a home.
Right.
It was kind of the thing that the U.S. government realized that as people are coming off farms and they're going into suburbia, that they didn't want a transient population. They're afraid that what would happen is what we were seeing in the Great Depression, where people would live in an area for 2 or 3 years and they'd pick up and move and go to a different area for 4 or 5 years. And they wanted to try and stabilize that. They did that by making home ownership affordable, which was a good thing for a lot of Americans. But it doesn't mean that that's what you have to follow. Fair? So we're kind of going against a bunch of decades of education. My parents would flip out if they heard me telling podcasters and listeners not to buy a home. Me, I'm going, hey, I think you need to look at it balanced. And that goes into my last one, which is lifestyle and a personal preference. Gideon, what's your big goal after college?
Living a van down by the river.
That's right. So does it make sense for you to get into homeownership?
Not really.
And so what you should do on your income is you should look and say, okay, my van down by the river is going to cost me $2,000 to live in a month, or it's going to cost me $3,000 to live like that monthly. I should know that if I was to buy a home, it would cost me about $900 more than that. Take that $900 and invest it. Invest it in something that you believe in, whether it be stock market, whether it be land, whether it be real estate through a diversified fund or directly buying one and have somebody rent it.
Yeah.
You need to look at your ROIs and look at it as a business, but you need to invest that money. Let's say that your career over the next 6 months, Ashton, all of a sudden you're making big money, you've got some good leads and you've got a job. You might look at it and say, okay, do I really want to buy my home right now? And I don't know that I'm going to live in Utah. I don't know if I'm going to be in Montana, California. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
You might be better off to say, cool, I'm going to invest the difference. If I know that I should be paying $3,000 a month for a home, for the style of home I want, I'm only paying $800 a month in rent. Invest that difference, and that's where you're going to grow your wealth. But make sure you invest the difference. Because when people hear don't buy a home, they hear, oh, live off less money and spend it. And that's not the true either. Because some of the cool things about owning a home is I can modify the living space. Have I modified my personal home much?
No.
Oh, okay. I disagree. I've modified. No, you're right. I really haven't. I've added a couple extra. I really haven't. I've added a couple extra closets, but I haven't tore down walls and knocked down stuff. So you can modify it. I can paint it, so on and so forth. But
that's what I was thinking. We've painted that a lot.
Yeah, painted it, updated the tile, updated the carpet.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it modern, right? Granite countertops and those kind of things. But now I realize I'm also responsible for my lawn and my garden, and those kind of things make me look at it and go, I think I'm ready to downsize my home because I don't love mowing lawns. Gideon does.
I just get paid for it.
Oh, did you mow my lawn before you left?
Nope, I did not.
I didn't think so.
I tried to tell him to, and he didn't
we
want
had to do it too
Okay.
Monday right before we pulled out of town. Do you want to wander? If you want to wander, a home might not be the best for you, but like I said, make sure you invest the difference.
I think one of the biggest things that I've been thinking about is, you mentioned it, it's culture exists for a reason. And I was trying to remember, I remembered the quote wrong. Herbert Hoover, his slogan was 2 cars in every garage and a chicken in every pot. For some reason I thought he said, and a home as well or something, but he didn't. But those cultures exist for a reason, but it doesn't mean that reason has to be your reason either, is something that you've kind of touched on a lot. I think it adds a little bit more to the front end, because when you get into all the interest rates and the money that it costs and all that sort of stuff, you've decided that a home is for you. But before that, you got to think about all the culture and, the culture of what you want to do with your life, the culture of the work that you're in, the culture of all those different things, and it can help you before you get to the step of, this is how much money it's going to cost over the course of 20 years.
I love it, Ashton, because that really built right where I was going to say is sometimes it's the pride of raising your family, right? It's that culture of being, hey, I raised my family in the same spot. They had stability, right? So there's that cultural pride that I still feel.
Yeah.
And there might be a sense of pride in the neighborhood, the community, the security. But I love that you asked the listener to take a step back and say, what do I want in life? Not what does everybody tell me I need to get.
Right.
And that's so hard to step back and say, what do I really want? And then make a decision and make a plan of action. I love home ownership. It's been really good for us as a family. It's been great. I provided a stable place for you guys. You knew where you're coming home every night. You didn't have to worry about moving every 6 months because of rent change. I'm very glad I did it. I just don't know, like I said at the start of the episode, that's where I'll continue to be in the future. But at the same token, I'm planning on how to build onto here, how to build a bigger cabin. It's encouraging the listener to look at their life, but don't follow the crowd. Make your own decision and realize that home buying is buying a home, not just buying a car or signing up for a cell phone plan.
Yeah.
A home is a commitment, but it's less of a commitment than getting married. So, it's that balance between the kids, and then move forward in confidence after you make that decision whether to buy a home or not, and then live your best life. You got this.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adulting Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com, our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kids should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Now, the special song from Gene and Gideon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adulting Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com, our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kids should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Now, the special song from Gene and Gideon.